Some homeowners spend thousands of dollars prepping their home for sale and barely increase the value at all. And honestly, this is one of the biggest mistakes I keep seeing sellers make right now, because a lot of people assume if we renovate everything, buyers will pay dramatically more. But that's not always how it works. In fact, some updates add surprisingly little value when it comes time to sell, while other smaller, less expensive improvements can completely change how buyers perceive a home. And that difference matters a lot because perception drives buyer behavior, especially online. So if you're thinking about selling anywhere in Minneapolis, St. Paul, or the greater Twin Cities area, this is something you should absolutely understand before spending money on updates. Because today, we're breaking down what actually adds value before selling, where homeowners are wasting their money, what buyers tend to notice most, and how to think strategically before preparing your home for the market. Because at the end of the day, the goal is clarity, not pressure. That mindset can save homeowners a lot of money. Now first, let's talk about one of the biggest misconceptions sellers have. A lot of homeowners believe we need to fully remodel before listing. That's usually not true, because buyers are not always looking for the most upgraded home, the most expensive finishes, or the trendiest remodel. A lot of times, the buyers that we know and that we work with simply want homes that feel clean, bright, well-maintained, and move-in ready. That perception matters way more than people realize. And this is where sellers sometimes get themselves into trouble, because emotional renovations are very different than strategic renovations. What you personally love in a home doesn't automatically translate into dramatically higher buyer demand. And that surprises a lot of people, because homeowners naturally become emotionally attached to their updates. I'm guilty of that. And we remember the time, the money, and the decisions and the effort involved. But buyers look at homes differently. Buyers compare homes based on overall presentation, the condition, the layout, the price, and competition in the market, not renovation receipts. And this is why over-renovating can become risky, because large projects often create timeline delays, budget overruns, stress, and unrealistic expectations about the return on investment. That doesn't mean updates are bad. Some improvements absolutely make sense before selling, but strategy matters. Here's something that surprises a lot of homeowners. Some of the highest impact improvements before selling are actually pretty simple. Things like fresh paint, updated lighting, refreshed landscaping, a little bit of decluttering, deep cleaning, flooring touch-ups, and minor maintenance. These things can completely change how a home feels to buyers. And buyer perception changes fast, especially online. Sometimes buyers decide emotionally whether they like a home within seconds of seeing photos. We're talking quick. That's why presentation matters so much. Another important thing sellers should really understand is the goal before selling is not perfection. It's positioning. You want buyers to walk into the home and feel comfortable, confident, and emotionally connected. And usually that comes from cleanliness, lighting, condition, and presentation, way more than expensive luxury upgrades. One area where sellers commonly are wasting money is over customization, because highly personalized updates don't always appeal to a broad range of buyers. And a lot of times, very expensive remodels right before selling create unnecessary stress without dramatically increasing value. Again, clarity, not pressure. The goal is understanding what actually matters in your market. Something else I think sellers are underestimating is maintenance matters more than people realize, because buyers notice signs that a home has not been cared for. We're talking about things like deferred maintenance, worn finishes, broken fixtures, damaged trim, or neglected exterior spaces. All of this can affect buyer confidence quickly. Even small maintenance issues can create bigger emotional concerns in the buyer's mind. Sometimes buyers start wondering what else hasn't been maintained. That emotional reaction matters. This is why preparation before listing matters so much, because two homes with similar layouts and similar pricing can perform very, very differently depending on presentation. One home feels brighter, cleaner, more cared for, and move-in ready. The other might feel neglected, dark, cluttered, or overwhelming. That emotional difference affects showing activity, buyer excitement, and overall perception of value. Now, let's talk about photos for a minute. because online presentation, as we know, is huge. And a lot of buyers will form those emotional opinions before they ever walk through the front door. And if the home feels dark, looks cluttered, or photographs poorly, buyers may just scroll past it incredibly quickly. And that's one reason preparation matters so much before listing, because the first impression often happens online. Want to know one of the most underrated things a homeowner can do? Lighting. Because bright homes tend to photograph better, feel cleaner, feel larger, and create a more welcoming experience overall. Simple things like updating your light fixtures, putting in new, brighter bulbs, cleaning your windows, and lighter paint can dramatically change perception. And another thing I keep seeing sellers do is spending money in areas buyers barely prioritize. That can become financially frustrating really quickly, because not every dollar spent equals a dollar added in value. That surprises a lot of homeowners, especially if they've spent years improving the home. But buyers evaluate homes based on today's market competition, not personal history. And this again is why strategy matters so much before selling, because sometimes the smartest move is not a massive remodel. Usually, it's simplifying your spaces, improving presentation, handling some maintenance, increasing brightness, and making the home feel more emotionally easy for buyers. That's what creates stronger first impressions. And another thing homeowners should understand, you do not need to pressure yourself into perfection before listing. A lot of sellers become overwhelmed thinking everything has to be perfect. That mindset again creates unnecessary stress. The goal is not perfection. The goal is positioning your home as competitively and confidently as possible for the market. The homeowners who usually feel the least stress before the selling process are the ones who create a strategy early, not the ones making rushed decisions right before listing, because early planning gives you more flexibility, more clarity, and more confidence. Again, clarity, not pressure. And by the way, if you're thinking about selling anywhere in Minneapolis, St. Paul, or the greater Twin Cities area, make sure to subscribe. I make weekly videos helping homeowners and home buyers better understand this market, avoid expensive mistakes, and make smarter real estate decisions. Before we finish up, this is probably the biggest takeaway from this entire conversation. The homes that tend to perform best are not always the most expensive homes. They're usually the homes that are the best cared for, present well online, feel emotionally inviting, and create confidence for buyers. That emotional experience matters more than most homeowners realize. So before spending thousands of dollars renovating your home, make sure you understand what buyers in your market actually prioritize, what updates realistically matter, and what may simply create unnecessary expenses and stress. At the end of the day, preparing a home for sale should feel strategic, not overwhelming, because the goal isn't perfection. The goal is clarity, not pressure. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you have any questions about buying or selling anywhere in Minneapolis, St. Paul, or the Twin Cities area, feel free to reach out anytime. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.